Hey everyone, welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. We have a notable guest on today. He received his doctoral degree from the Aesthetics and Computation Group at MIT Media Lab, where his research focused on combining fields such as computer science, statistics, graphic design, and data visualization as a means for understanding information. After completing his dissertation in 2004, he spent time developing tools for visualization of genetic data as a postdoc with Eric Lander at the Eli and Edythe L. Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard. During 2006 and 2007 school year, he was the Nierenberg Chair of Design for CMU's School of Design. He's the author of Visualizing Data and the co-author with Casey Reas of Processing, a Programming Handbook for Visual Designers and Artists, and Getting Started with Processing, which describes the project they co-founded in 2001. Please join me in welcoming and celebrating Ben Fry. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Are you ready for 20 questions?
Sure.
Great. Question one. Tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
So the main thing I do is I run a business called Fathom. So basically a studio based in Boston that we work with just messy data problems, basically trying to kind of, if you have people on one side and data on the other, how do you sort of make a connection for that? So it's some interaction design and it's some data science work and it's some technical backend stuff. But also just kind of like how do you help people solve problems like that and think about information. And then alongside that, I do a bit of teaching as well. So you mentioned the processing stuff that I worked on for many years. Nowadays, I've been working on kind of what comes next, and also been teaching at MIT a bit, where I try and get more people excited about this domain of design and data and everything in between.
Great. Question two. What's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
Uh, Makes me different. Hold on. It's interesting. I think hard to answer this one without like kind of sounding self-aggrandizing. I so I've been doing this kind of thing a really long time, and so maybe kind of a mix of things here. So I've been coding since I was 8 or 9, and like interested in design as for as long as I can remember, um, and also like not just sort of the doing it, but was always very interested in kind of the how these things even happen, like the business of it and the history of it, and kind of how all that fits together. And I'm now that's I'm now 50, so I've been doing that for over 40 years. And so like I think one of the things I think that was kind of a weird thing to like as I've grown older, realizing that was maybe a weird thing for kid to be interested in. Um, or just to kind of be thinking about that. And though I think maybe fast forward to now, a big part is like, what do you do with that information? As opposed to just kind of like reflecting on things or whatever. Like what how to best make use of that interest and experience and things like that over this very long time period.
Great. And just a note for the audience, if you guys are interested in this episode, please check out our related episode with John Maeda. That was a very popular one. Uh, question three, why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
Why this? I think it's just so part of it actually. So you mentioned John Maeda. So I was one of John's students some years ago, so 98 to 2004. And what one of the great things about working with John was that actually on first meeting him, I guess my senior year in college, he came and did a talk at um, at our design program, and as he's showing this work, it was kind of I, as a student, like I kind of was trying to figure out like, oh, I have this interested in design, and I'm also doing a minor in, so in the design department and doing a minor in computer science, and trying to figure out how to reconcile these interests. And so it was like at the time, it was kind of like, well, you could do UI design, which was kind of a new field at the time, and or doing interactive multimedia CD-ROMs, which seems like a terrible dead end. And when John came to visit, it was kind of the first, like, being able to see a different kind of intersection in these interests that I had, and watching him present all this work, noticing that like my friends didn't understand what he was like, didn't necessarily understand what he was doing. It's like, wait, what? How did he do that? And I'm like, wait, I know how he did that. Like, oh, that's really interesting. And just sort of learning from that. So I think I've just been, just always very interested in these different domains, and also just kind of how, basically just design and engineering and people, and kind of how all those how they interact together, and also just enjoy building things, and so kind of kept at it.
Great. So some people struggle with number 4, and the question is, what does your future look like?
uh, Gee, why do people struggle with it? That's a perfectly easy question. What does the future? I think there's a lot to figure out. I think the main thing for me is like how to, how do I find interesting things to work on and do it with people who I care about and enjoy working with, and that's really kind of the primary goal, and everything else is like just there's lots of interesting things I'd like to work on and be able to build, and but it's all about kind of the how that's done, and being able to kind of, and the opportunity to even be able to pursue that stuff, I think, is the real opportunity.
Great. So 5 we say is unique to this show, and the question is, let's talk about location. How does the notion of
Mhm.
place play into what you do?
Oh, that's, yeah, it's an interesting one, because I didn't think about it quite well, necessarily quite as much until COVID came along, and with um, one of the things that we run into with just like running Fathom and with the studio is, um, when we all went remote, uh, that really upended kind of the way that we worked. And for me, just like not being able to be in the same place with the folks who are making things, and being around to like sort of discuss things with people and be able to talk through ideas and things like that, and that becoming a sort of transactional thing that's done over Zoom, and that you have to kind of make plans to talk to folks, and things like that. Um, and so that, plus also just, just there's something about kind of being in a place that interesting things are going on around you. It's one of the things that want to have our studio feel like that there's interesting work happening. But it's also what I like about, anytime that I am on campus at MIT, there's all these like wonderful, weird things going on, and people who are interested in all these, sort of far out sort of things that, even if it's not a domain I'm interested in, but it's just like, it's so fascinating to see how they are pursuing those things. Or anytime I go to a design school and like get to walk around the studios or whatever, it's just, I love seeing all of that stuff. And so I think just, it's, for me, it's a big part of the inspiration is kind of being in that kind of environment. I find that exhilarating. And so then when we were dealing with COVID, just kind of switching to removing a lot of that stuff, and not having as much of that time to like be in and around other people who are doing creative things, and being able to just kind of, I guess, look over their shoulder, but just to kind of see some of those things and how they were happening was a bummer. So,
Nice. So 6, you're starting from the beginning. What advice do you give your former younger self?
um, yeah, this is a tough one too. I mean, I think what I mean, I'm reasonably happy with how how stuff came out. I think or like what I've been able to do, I think um, I really, when I was younger, I spent that much more time kind of like trying to figure out like how does all this stuff mesh together and how does this work? And um, there, was one of the people whose work I looked up to. His name's John Holland. Wrote some interesting books about complexity and things. It's sort of like pop science stuff that I enjoyed in college. And he came to speak, and and folks didn't really know who he was, whatever. But was so excited to like kind of catch his lecture and like talk to him afterwards and say like, hey, what you know, I'm trying to do these things and like trying to mix these different disciplines and whatever. And like you as somebody who's done this, like how would you characterize that, or what was helpful for you or whatever? And he was actually like a little stumped, but then was kind of like, well, it does get easier. And, like even for that, like that was something really super helpful, just because at the time I was really struggling to kind of figure out how to reconcile these different interests and, sort of finding a way to do that. And so to see somebody who had, found a successful other path, and even just have this sort of, very basic, like, it's eventually gets a bit easier, was really, helped buoy how I was feeling about things at the time.
Great. So 7, what's a day in your life like?
Oh, I guess depends on the day. So let's see. These days it's on Wednesday and Friday mornings. I spend the first half of the day over at MIT teaching a studio course. Mondays are a lot of catch up and emails and a production meeting at with staff and things. Um, my typical day, I wake up around 5 or 6 and get to work for a couple hours, and the kids start waking up, and get to spend a little bit of time with them, and then head in and do my thing, and then uh, yeah, like sort of I try and make sure I have some time to build things, but a lot of times it's a lot of meetings and email and all that mixed in there somewhere.
Nice. And 8, lifelong learning is a popular topic. How do you stay up to date?
Huh. Um, uh, I think, so given the domain, I mean, especially on the technical side, like stuff, just continues changing. I mean, certainly on the design side, things do as well. But like, just kind of with the technical part, just the mechanisms of it are always shifting. So like it's kind of like if you're a designer, but your tools kept changing every 6 months or something. And um, I think a big part of that for me to date has been just continuing to do the work myself. Like technically, I'm told I should be, just spending all my time, managing folks and things like that. But it's helpful to continue building and coding things or designing things, and um, and in that process, kind of use different tools, learn new things, just trying to do that, and because it just you have to keep sort of refreshing that stuff. It's also a domain that I'm so interested in as far as like what are useful ways of kind of getting work done, and so how do you improve different tools and things like that. And that's just a big part of how my head works. And then I guess on the other side, a lot of reading, or like I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and that's kind of how which I do a lot of walking. So I walk to work, so I get about an hour of listening in a day. And if I can listen to books a lot faster than I can read them, so I can do a book at 2x, and so I get through dozens of books in a year, which is really great. And so that's been a really nice way to take in new material and just different ideas, and be able to engage in a way that I wouldn't otherwise.
Great. So you touched on this, and 9 is about tools. Do you use both digital and analog tools?
Yeah, that it's kind of kind of critical. It's one of the things that, I push on with folks in class, that, trying to make sure that there's, kind of a mix of tools, be able to do some things by hand so that you can kind of think through things before you're facing, code or whatever, where things are kind of, I don't know, already taking you in a very specific direction. And so doing some physical stuff helps, kind of stay out of that. And also just, I've been doing more work in the hardware and electronic space and things like that. Or we have, like a knitting machine at the office and 3D printer and other kinds of thing, pen plotter, just different kinds of media that we like to use just as ways of just helping us think about problems in different ways. And so that's been really critical since the, environment of a laptop, a phone, screen, whatever. These are all just very synthetic kind of spaces. And so just important to kind of think about how, the things that you create and how they're situated elsewhere, and, try and really push on that as best we can.
Great. So halfway number 10, work-life balance, life-work balance. How do you deal with it?
Uh, Poorly, probably. I really, yeah, like I try to just, muscle my way through it as best I can, and just the big things for me are my work and my family, which it's probably a very generic sort of answer, but like it kind of comes at the expense of having a broad range of hobbies or something like that. But care a great deal about getting, time in with my kids, with my wife, and but then also like I really enjoy my work, and so I want to be building and making things, and so the outcome is typically I just put in some very long hours, and I have a really awesome, supportive wife who kind of sets a stage for me to be able to pull that off, and then as much as possible try and shut that back off and do some more life things as well.
Great. And if you weren't doing what you do now, what might you be doing?
Um, yeah, it's uh, hard hard to say. I think it would have to be. I'd have to find. I think about this a bit, but like haven't haven't come up with a good answer. And I think what like the other day at lunch, we were talking about like there was some mention of like me retiring, and my staff just laughed, or if I, like if I were going to be doing something else, I think I would still need to be like making things in some way, that I, at one point I was, toying with the idea of like, well, maybe I should just, um, what if I did, stay home, have my wife be able to do more of her writing, and maybe I'll do some teaching and things like that. But, I can be primary caregiver with the kids and things like that. And, my wife's response was something like, yeah, that would work for a little bit. And then you get ideas. And, like, so basically knowing me well enough that I would then just, kind of revert into needing to build stuff and needing to create things. And that's just kind of where so much of my, what makes me happy comes from.
Nice. So 12, what would you not like to do with your career?
Like, as far as what sort of career would I not want to do? Or,
Mhm. Yes.
um, I think anything that involves being a politician or a bureaucrat, or I think just anything where I have to like where a fundamental where a core part of your job is sort of telling half truths or outright lying or whatever, or having to spend a lot of time sitting through bureaucratic kind of things, that tends to be the stuff that drives me absolutely bananas. I can't I can't really deal with people like that. Maybe acting would also be similarly bad. Just anything that involves like not just being able to be or yourself, and you know, be yeah, sort of wrapping yourself inside something else, or being in a position of manipulating others in some fashion.
Great. So 13, do you have a favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Uh, so there's a there's a quote. It's Charles Kingsley, and what is it? The we act as though the comforts of life, or that comfort and luxury are the what is the exact what they have it. We act as though comfort and luxury were the chief requirements of life, when all that we need to make us happy is something to be enthusiastic about. So
Hmm.
um, I really love that. Like it's what I've liked that for a long time. It's often attributed to a lot of different people, but just this, that's the kind of the core thing that kind of gets me through the day, as far as it has so little to do with all this other stuff, and just kind of the I don't know, sort of what drives your interests, and actually makes you happy.
Great. And do you have a least favorite word, quote, or sentence?
I hadn't thought to like need to start collecting my least favorite quotes as they come up. Um, I hate the yeah, I was gonna say I dislike, but actually I hate the phrase "both sides." Like that, there's this weird kind of moral relativism thing that is really pervasive, and kind of certainly taken over media, but also like just people talk like that as well, and that there's sort of that sort of relative that people kind of have this, in our current moment, it's especially bad because I feel like we have and particularly within the States, within the US, um, this sort of messed up version of right and wrong, and that there's a lot of wrong that's happening, and that being successful is being kind of contributing to people feeling like, well, maybe that's okay, but also, both sides are doing this and that and whatever. And it's sort of an intellectually lazy thing that kind of further perpetuates the sort of quagmire that we're in. And so leaves us in a very ugly sort of space. So the sooner that goes away, the better.
Great. And you're choosing one word to describe yourself. What word do you choose?
Oh, I, I'm stumped.
Okay. 16, what keeps you up at night?
Um, Lots of things, I suppose. Though probably more personal than I want to get into. But yeah, like just kind of certainly. I mean, I kind of was referring to it, I guess, with the quote that the figuratively, things that keep me up at night are kind of the you know um, I read a lot of history. I'm very interested in history and systems and people and societies, and how all these things kind of work together. And so it's very difficult to watch our current moment in this sort of slow motion. Um, yeah, just a lot of just what's happening in the news at the moment. Um, but as far as the actual things that I think that's more of like a background fear. The day-to-day things that keep me up are more of the personal nature, I suppose.
Great. And do you have a dream you're chasing?
Mm, not not that I like to talk about necessarily. Is like I think I think in hindsight, a lot of or so um, not explicitly, because I think that I feel like the more that you sort of like say that out loud, it's kind of like a way for it to not happen, which is like sort of a weird superstitious thing maybe.
Mhm.
But it has been interesting in over the years, kind of working backwards from things I'm doing, and realizing like hey, this is stuff that I have thought about a long time, or wanted to do, you know, um, since being very young, or being, interested in things like, being at a design studio or running a business or something like that. And so it's been interesting kind of unpacking that over time as I have engaged on certain things and sort of kind of looking at the question in essentially the opposite direction.
Great. And last few here, number 18, what inspires you?
I think just people and the things they do and make. Like, I mentioned kind of with the space thing, like just kind of, I love being around people who are like just really talented at what they do in whatever domain, and it's just like it's so, like whether that's seeing music or being or like or I guess hearing music or seeing things that folks are making just around the studio. It's like I get like just before this call that our lead designer had sent over some stuff. I was just like, so basically for something that I've been working on for the class, and I'm so excited to like use that work, and I just love how he's thinking about the problem and love how these things that he's put together, and like excited to talk to him about it some more. And and so like I think that's also part of the with running a firm, kind of like being around, having people like that around. And it's just it's not even just, hey, they're doing these things for me, but rather just as they work on their own personal projects too, and the things that they come up with. And yeah, just really really enjoy that. I really enjoy other things that are made, whether it's music or a movie or writing, and that just is something that really charges me up. Or like in the case of the my coworker here, like something that like kind of spurs me on to like, oh great, I can't wait to like implement this stuff or make this happen or like share this with others. And that's really pretty great.
Great. And 19, any advice you'd like to share?
um I think I mean some of these are tough, right? I think one of um the things that I often talk about at the end of the semester with my students, for instance, is so it's like these kids who are at um, MIT, and sometimes I'll also have folks from Harvard or Wellesley or um, other schools in the neighborhood. And one of the things that they basically just they have all these doors that are going to be open to them just simply by having the name of that school like on their resume, and that they can kind of do just about anything they want. And so one of the things that I um, encourage them to do or want them to think about is like so use that ability to kind of like write your own or use that ability to be able to like to find your own path. Like don't that you shouldn't kind of just like, well, here's the biggest tech company I can go work for with or that they because all these things are available to them, it's a real opportunity. And personally, I feel kind of an obligation, but it's a real opportunity to be able to create your own sort of path, or like find something unique you might be able to do that may not look like what other folks are doing, or what you're hearing about in the news, or sort of these more obvious paths that people might take. And it's something I also push on them, both because that's stuff that I care about, but also they're in this um, program where it's people are doing a mix. It's by design, it's doing a mixture of different backgrounds and abilities, like like lots of different majors that are represented. And it's this design minor and design major program where we'll have people from mechanical engineering and biology and economics, and then they're taking a design class. Um, and so if you have people who have those sort of crossover interests, just really trying to encourage them to like really lean into that as much as possible, and not just kind of go out and be the one-dimensional version of themselves that is kind of required by job titles or job descriptions, and instead hoping that more of them will find their own unique path.
Great. And finally, number 20, how can our listeners keep tabs on you, and what's our call to action?
I guess call to action might be, maybe that's the previous one, but so for keeping in touch, I'm on social and on Blue Sky and also Mastodon. So information.garden will have me for Mastodon, and then also can be found on Blue Sky. Also, fathom.info is our company's website. So lots of material there, although we've also been too busy to update it properly. So that's a common theme for a lot of my public persona stuff.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining today. When John Maeda came on, he mentioned you, and I know it would be amazing to have you on. So
Oh, that's great.
so glad to record with you today. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks so much.